Tennessee releases its depth chart. What are your initial reactions to what you saw on the depth chart, which nowadays doesn't mean an awful lot? Josh Heupel, you said line earlier. I don't want to go that far, but I will say this: he takes great pride in misleading the media. So I don't know that you take a lot out of the depth chart, but you can take some things. What did you take out of the depth chart? By the way, Joe
So
Milton.
yeah, and that one actually wasn't surprising. One of the things that kind of stood out to me was that Roman Harrison was penciled in as a starter at Leo, but at defensive end, it's Tyler Barron or Dominic Bailey. Now, I've been calling for Tyler Barron, Dave, to step up for a while, and it seems like he still hasn't separated himself. The other one is both cornerback spots are an either or, meaning they have no cornerbacks. They still can't find somebody. The star and both safety spots are locked in. So obviously they're willing to do that in some areas.
Okay.
Offensive line, totally in flux. And I think that really stands out with there's a either or at 3 of the 5 positions. And then the fourth is Cooper Mace penciled in at center, but we know he's not starting on Saturday. So
yeah, we know that. And I don't think he's going to start. I don't think he's going to start for the Florida game. And again, this is not Cooper telling me this because he is a part of what we do here. I'm specifically not asking, but based off other sources, I don't think he's going to be ready for a few weeks, which you can read about on offthehooksports.com. Also, we reported earlier that Elijah Simmons has a tweaked knee and could be out 3 to 4 weeks. We'll see. I don't think you're going to get Josh Heupel to address that because he wasn't up on the depth chart anyway. So it's not like he's not going to run out there. I guess if he's in street clothes, he could be asked about it, Caleb. But, you talked about, my gosh, Tyler Barron. I think that Tyler Barron, Addison Nichols, and lastly, who are we just talking about? Elijah Simmons are the guys with the most talent that need to get a little bit more serious about how hard they play football. And now
throw Joe Mincy into that too, by the way.
Fair. And I'm not saying that now that Elijah Simmons is hurt, he should get healthy. But I am saying that there were a lot of guys brought in under Pruitt that were mean guys. Mean, nasty, I mean as a compliment. And some of the other guys that have come in since have not been as mean. You talk about the offensive line. How much shuffling do you think we'll see in real game action before Tennessee gets up 30-3 of maybe putting in, I don't know, an Addison Nichols at center, maybe having Ollie Lane play a little left guard, Andre Keurig maybe playing left guard, and then at the right tackle position, you got Mincy and Crawford, right? I think that Tennessee is good enough where they can mix and match a little bit and see who are real game players, not just dudes that are showing up in a uniform.
I think they'll do that everywhere but center. And the reason I don't think they'll do that as center is they're already on their backup at center, and they really need Joe Milton and Ollie Lane to develop a rapport. So I think he's going to try to keep them in together because you don't want Joe Milton then to get used to another center. Now he might rotate in once he pulls Joe Milton, which if you're a Tennessee fan, you hope he pulls Joe Milton and you hope to get a look at Nico, which I guess is a new question, Dave. Do you expect to see Nico on Saturday? I do.
No question.
Yeah,
I don't even think that's close. I think the game's going to be out of hand, and that might be the most exciting part of the game, quite frankly, on Saturday.
I agree. So I think once you get Nico in, you'll rotate Addison Nichols and try some things, but I don't think you're going to do that with Joe because I think you want to make sure that Joe and Ollie Lane have really developed a rapport with each other going forward.
Let's go down the other running backs, Jabari Small or Jalen Wright. When it's all said and done at the end of the year, it's Small or Wright. So they use the basically or to say that they're both starters. But Small or Wright, who do you think at the end of the year will have the biggest impact for the Vols?
I'm solely being a slave to what I've heard about practice reports, but I'm going with Jalen Wright at this point.
Totally agree.
I think Small is more fundamentally sound, but Jalen Wright has put on he's put on what, 15 pounds this offseason? He wasn't 210 last year.
No, he's bigger, he's more powerful, and he still has the bounce, is what I've been told. Now, Squirrel White listed at receiver over Dante Thornton.
But it's an either or again.
Is it an either or? Okay, because
yeah,
according to the Knoxville News Sentinel, it's got him just below him. So if it's an either or, That's one thing. But the fact that he hasn't stepped in and taken that position, which I think a lot of people hoped he would, and you and I thought he would, is that saying anything about Dante Thornton, that he hasn't had the impact that many people thought he would?
No, I think it's more Heupel's going to be able to run 4 people in a rotation, and I think Squirrel White is just that good. Particularly, Squirrel White's a great fit for Joe Milton because, as I've talked about before, if anybody can catch a Joe Milton overthrow, it's Squirrel White.
I find it interesting they have Jacob Warren or McAllen Castles
That
because
stood out to me too.
yeah, it's going to be Warren. I mean, they rested him last week a little bit so that he's fresh and he knows the system. I will say this from people I talked to in that program, Castles is going to be a dominating run blocker. And he's good enough to get open, but he maybe proved to be a little bit more powerful when he's blocking in the box. But that's Jacob Warren. I mean, he played 75% of the snaps last year with Princeton Fant rotated in and out. He'll play 75% of the snaps this year too.
All right, here's what I think is going to happen. I think we talked about they would alternate Warren one drive and then 4 White another, which I think is still strongly possible. But I think I think it'll be Warren 4 wide, Warren Castles, Warren 4 wide, Warren Castles. That's how I think they're going to do it. And then with the 3 to 4 receiver, they'll rotate Thornton, White, Keaton, and McCoy in. And I think they will actually move Thornton. I think they'll stick Thornton in at wide out sometimes too to give Keaton or McCoy a rest.
So in the defensive backfield, you have Danico Slaughter or Gabe Judy Lawley. That's at one cornerback position. At the other, it's Kamal Haddon or Warren Burrell. And then at the star position, you have Tamarian McDonald. At safety, you have Jalen McCullough, followed by Jordan Thomas. At the other safety position, Wesley Walker. And then followed by him is Andre Turrentine, who was supposed to be a corner this time last year, or Christian Charles. Out of that group, I'm going to write a column about this on offthehooksports.com, and I'm going to poll all the various contributors to the site, including Jimmy Himes and John Adams. Which one of those defensive backs takes the biggest step?
Wesley Walker. Wesley Walker showed promise at the end of last year. He takes a huge step this year. I'm throwing all the cornerbacks out. I think that rotation is Heupel saying, if you want to know where they're going to rotate, it's going to be cornerback. They're going to try everybody at cornerback against Virginia because I don't think they have an answer. And I'm still sticking with it. Jordan Matthews will be starting there by October, and Jordan Matthews and Ricky Gibson might be starting at cornerback by November.
I'm going to Danico Slaughter, and it's purely based off the eye test. Like if we were voting for who's going to be in the college football playoff, if we were on that committee, it would be eye test that pushed him over the top, Caleb. And I think that he has shown me flashes where I think he can be really, really good. I'm talking about his fast twitch and his explosion. But I'm not an NFL scout, but I've called these a couple of times in my career. And I think it'll be Danico Slaughter that takes the biggest step this year. And lastly, 5 key balls to watch versus the University of.
Before we get
go ahead.
That, I just want to bring up this one point with the depth chart. Because I feel strongly about this, Dave, by the way, which is that I don't know if you saw, but one, we still don't know if he's going to play Jalen McCullough because of that indictment. And I don't know if I believe him because he's got Cooper Mays listed in as a starter. I think the SEC needs to implement what the Big Ten's about to implement. I don't know if you saw that yesterday, but the Big Ten is going to require coaches to provide player availability 4 days out before the game.
It's about time. I was talking to somebody about that. I can't believe you brought that up. I was talking to somebody about that just last week. You know, you act like it's such a secret. I'm sorry. The casinos in Vegas aren't real happy with that. That's why professional leagues have to release who they play. So, or who they're going to play, who's questionable, who's doubtful. And I'm all for college football having to do that as well.
Yeah. And this is another instance. I mean, I'm sorry, but the SEC is a better product, but the Big Ten has been better run for years. The Big Ten started instant replay before the SEC did. They started their own network before the SEC did. Now they're requiring player availability before the SEC did. And I'm like, when is the SEC going to get ahead? Yeah, the Big Ten is genius with this. And by the way, the markets and the fans, everybody's going to love this. It is fan friendly to demand player availability the week of a game. And I get coaches like gamesmanship. But it's not good for the fans. Even if Josh Heupel and it helps Tennessee and it takes advantage of Tennessee, it is not good for fans or media or anybody to have this gamesmanship of, oh, will this player who's probably out for a month play this week? Who knows? It's just annoying.
No, it is. And you should have more insight into that. I understand playing by the rules, which Josh Heupel is doing now. I'm not going to offer up more than I have to, but I would like for there to be a rule in place. The question is somebody going to be like Bill Belichick? Tom Brady was questionable for like 8 years. He was on the injury report as questionable every game for 8 years, and you knew he was going to play. So there's going to be ways around it. Go ahead.
Yes, you can still manipulate the rules. Belichick has for years, but it's harder. Like, that's the thing with any rules. Rules can always be manipulated and twisted. That doesn't mean they shouldn't exist.
Yep. And comment on the message board as far as who's going to improve the most. Kamal Hadden, mostly because he couldn't get worse. Huge upside. Ouch. That is just mean. If Kamal Hadden's parents are watching right now, I just want to apologize on behalf of Travis's Post, Caleb, and Dave Hooker at Off the Hook Sports.